to be recording. So if anyone who is attending tonight has a follow-up question or wants a copy of the recording, I'm glad to share that. And just as a reminder, I would ask that all of the registrants, of course not the panelists, mute themselves and have their cameras off, and we will be using the chat feature for questions. Okay, I'm going to start us off tonight, and thank you all for registering, and we're delighted to have you join us. This is, I think, the fourth, maybe fifth year we've done this How to Navigate the Kindergarten Admissions Cycle panel in the springtime, and there are lots of them around and lots of good information, but I'm a believer in get your details directly from the source. So tonight we are extremely lucky to have really the best sources in town. So I'm going to just do a very quick introduction of myself and Smart City Kids, and then I'm going to turn it over to our panelists, and I'll just call on you, I think, and I would ask you each to do a description of yourself, your school, and just a little, you know, your one-liner about who you are and who the program is. I see you smiling, Jason. So welcome. My name is Adriana Payne. I'm the Director of Operations at Smart City Kids. We are an educational consultancy based in New York City, but we work with families in the region and all over the world. We essentially have the mission of demystifying what can be a very opaque and daunting process for many families. I will tell you, as a parent, I found the kindergarten admissions process the most complex of any, and I have a college student, and kindergarten in New York City was much worse than college. So, but I didn't have the experts, so I didn't know at the time. And we serve all ages of learners, starting with early childhood all the way through college. We have a special education consultant. We do parenting sessions, and we also partner with institutions like Memorial Sloan Kettering and NYU. So, you know, if after the workshop you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to reach out. We're here for you. And let's kick it off. I'm going to start. Let's start with Mr. Jason Caldwell from the Horace Mann School.
No problem. And hello, everyone. And thank you, Adriana, for inviting me. And thank you for all of those that came to listen, and pleasure and privilege to be with all my fellow panelists. My name is Jason Caldwell. I'm the Director of Admissions at the Horace Mann School. Horace Mann is a co-educational nursery through 12 day school with locations in the Riverdale section of the Bronx and a nursery division in the Upper East Side. We have 5 kindergarten classes, 3 at our nursery division, 2 in the Bronx. The majority of our new kindergarten students will join us at the Bronx location. We have 2 freestanding cottages, which make up the 2 classrooms in the kindergarten. What I love about Horace Mann, there are a number of things I love about Horace Mann. I suspect there are a number of things I love about the school because I'm an alum. I actually went to middle school and high school at Horace Mann. My brother went to middle school and high school at Horace Mann, and both my girls started in kindergarten. My oldest is in 6th grade now, and my youngest is in 1st grade. I'll never forget, after her 2nd day of school, my youngest came and said, "Daddy, it's the best school ever, and I'm never, ever, ever, ever leaving." I'm glad that it worked out because that would have been really awkward. In any event, what I love about Horace Mann is the fact that we're able to blend a really wonderful, challenging, rich academic curriculum with a really kind, caring community. And we also have an amazing social emotional component as well. We are partnered with the Yale Center for Social Emotional Intelligence. I also love our diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging work. Our Office of Identity, Culture, and Institutional Equity does an amazing job with the kid. I love our partnership with Pollyanna. And I love the relationships that are forged. I'll end with this. 29 people that graduated from Horace Mann were at my wedding. The relationships you build at Horace Mann are relationships you'll have for the rest of your life. I look forward to answering your questions.
Thanks, Jason. Okay, I'm going to ask Marjorie to go next.
Hi, everybody. My name is Marjorie Helmold. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm the Director of Admissions and Enrollment JK to 8 at Grace Church School. We are a co-ed Episcopal school near Union Square with an enrollment of just under 800 students on 2 campuses. So JK to 8 is at 86 4th Avenue, and 4 blocks away is the high school 9 through 12. Our main entry points are junior kindergarten, and then 5th, 6th, and 9th. We expand at the middle school. While we have a very Gothic structure outside, inside it's warm and welcoming, and I hope that you will come and tour in person and see how friendly and happy our students are as you wander about. While we're known for our rigorous academic education, our mission speaks to the whole student, and we care deeply about belonging for our students, for our parents, and for the whole community. Thanks.
Thanks, Marjorie. Okay, I'm going to ask Allison to go next, please.
Well, tough act to follow. I would like to join my esteemed colleagues in welcoming everyone, and Adriana for giving us this opportunity. St. David's School, all boys. We start in pre-K, 4 years old, and we go through 8th grade, so pre-K through 8. And we're all about boys, balance, and developing good men. Community is really, really important at St. David's. Understanding boys, how they learn best, how to allow boys the space to develop into reflective, introspective, deliberate men who will live a life of purpose is what we're all about. We really treasure the formative years, and we treasure the opportunity to maximize the impact that we can have in an all boys environment in shaping them for the future. So I think the most important thing that I can say about St. David's is that I would love for you to reach out, come see us. Happy to give a tour. We don't publicize it, but anybody who would like to reach out and come see us, we'd love to do so, with the remaining weeks of school or at any time that suits you. So please call on us. Thank you.
And I will say to everybody attending tonight, there's nothing like touring a school in the spring, because wow, the kids are just in great form. So, okay. So Beverly, I'm going to ask you to go next, please.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Adriana, for having us, and hello to my fellow colleagues and prospective parents. My name is Beverly Reese, and I am the Director of Admissions for the Berkeley Carroll School for the lower school. Berkeley Carroll, friends, is a private pre-K through 12th grade school with 3 just right campuses located in the Tree Line neighborhood of Park Slope, Brooklyn. I'm the only Brooklyn school here, I believe. It is a school that inspires to the critical, ethical, and global thinking of all of our students. And we talk it and we walk it. So our academic program from the ages of 3 to grade 12 emphasizes an interdisciplinary approach where faculty and students collaborate to pose essential questions. So we develop daring thinkers ready for success in college and beyond throughout their careers. Our enrollment right now is about 986, and that's overall. And in the lower school, it's about 367. We are fully enrolled. We're busting at the seams. And kindergarten, well, pre-K 4 is our largest entry point. but I will have spots available, about between 15 to 18 spots available for kindergarten historically. I love that our program is interdisciplinary, that really engages the students and keeps them happy and joyful. I am also in love with our Spanish program, which has been in existence for about 10 years now. It is an immersion program. And also we have free bus service. So I know that many of you are probably from Manhattan, hopefully lower Manhattan. We scoop up those kiddos, put them on our bus, and safely drop them off in front of our school. Safely, they are escorted off the bus into our campus. So thank you so much, and I look forward to you touring and attending one of our many open houses in the fall. We just had our last spring open house for prospective families interested in K through 4th grade. I believe it was last week. So sorry that you missed it. Springtime is a really nice time to visit a school, but we look forward to seeing you in the fall. Thank you.
Thanks, Beverly. Okay, Diane, you're up next.
Sure. Thank you for having us tonight. And good evening, everyone. I'm Diane Williams. I'm the director of lower school admissions at the Chapin School, which is a historically all-girls school founded in 1901 by Mariah Bowen Chapin, who is an active suffragette and an advocate for equal access to education for girls. We're located, as I said, on the Upper East Side of Manhattan at 84th and East End Avenue. We are a building that recently finished a pretty big construction program where we added 55,000 additional square feet. So now we have a total of 56 classrooms, 3 gyms. We have a rooftop playground, 8 science labs, and a lot more, which you can see on our website. And hopefully when you tour as well, we offer tours in the fall once you've applied. We have 3 kindergarten sections with 20 students in each section. So kindergarten is our biggest point of entry, but we also accept applications for other entry grades as well. And I know you'll be able to learn more about our school during the course of the admissions process. So I don't want to take up more time from this panel. So I will just pass the microphone back to Adriana and see if we can get started.
Thanks, Diane. Okay, we got 2 more. We're going to do Annie and then Drew.
All right, thank you so much. And thank you, Adriana, for having all of us. I'm Annie Ahrens. I'm from the Village Community School. And Village Community School is just a really uniquely structured environment for students to really find their passion for learning. We have a wonderful program where students are able to explore everything from woodworking to STEAM. It's a really nice balance of progressive and traditional. We're in the West Village and we love being over there. And we really encourage you guys to come do a tour with us in the fall. We have a brand new building that we're really excited to show off. I love showing off. I'm kind of fangirling over the new building. And it's a new building, but it's really ingrained really well. Adriana was just there this past week. So it feels like one building once you're inside. I know you guys will feel the passion for our students and the self-concept they're building from the very first day in order to have that happy, successful life. So I'll hand it back to you. And next to Drew.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll just be quick here so we can move on to the panel, but thanks for having me tonight. I have to admit something. This is my first panel, everybody. So here we go. But I'm excited to be here. I love Trinity, obviously, and I should share a little bit about myself. So I'm a former teacher, not at Trinity, but I did teach kindergarten and 3rd grade and moved into admissions about 6 years ago. So I've been at the school for that long. And now I'm a Trinity parent. My son's in 2nd grade at Trinity, and my daughter is starting kindergarten in the fall, and the teachers don't even know what they're about to see. So that's going to happen. But I'm excited about it. And I'll just tell you a little bit about the school too. So we're a co-ed school, K-12 on the Upper West Side. One of the neat things is we were founded in 1709. So we're a very old school, as you can understand, but also a new school at the same time. So a parent once said, and I love this quote, we're like a 300-year-old school and a 5-year-old school at the same time. We're constantly upping our game, reassessing our practices, really thinking about, is this what's best for kids and families? And so it's been great to be a new person there and really able to offer my ideas. And the school has jumped onto some of those things. So our DEI efforts, our anti-racism task force, those are some of the things I'd love to talk about tonight. Our service learning program, that's pretty unique for our school. We are one campus. So I walk and I see 12th graders and I see kindergartners within the blink of an eye. We have buddy programs. There's a lot of overlap there. Our chapel program is something a lot of people ask about, and I'm happy to share more about that tonight if that comes up, but that's something that really teaches morals and ethics. It's very celebratory. We have everything from Persian New Year, Lunar New Year, Black History Month chapel. We have a second year doing our Pride chapel, which I've been helping put together. So we're that type of school. We talk about everything and we celebrate everything. The traditions are fun, being just from my parent perspective. Halloween parade, pancake breakfast, trip to Dead Horse Bay, egg drop. I mean, the kids, these are things that they remember. Jason talked about going and having his wedding and having classmates there. These kids, after they graduate, go back and say, hey, remember the Halloween parade? Wasn't that amazing? Or remember when we did this field trip, or we did the post office unit. These traditions kind of bind the years together. So I love that. And maybe the biggest highlight, we have a dog in our head of school's office. He hangs out in the entryway every morning. The kids, including my son, pop over and pet him. And then you go up and you start your day. So, what better way? Thank you so much.
What better way? That is true. Okay, so I am going to just ask a few questions to everyone. And the first question, and I think we should kind of do a speed round here, is, I suppose this is the $1 million question, but do you plan at this point to see children in the fall on site?
Are you looking for us to jump in?
For our middle and upper, and I know there's not middle and upper division, for our middle and upper division, the answer is 99.99999%. And the idea is that all those kids are going to be able to be vaccinated. Our hope is that we're going to come up with a safe way to see nursery and kindergarten applicants. And that is our hope. Will we pivot if we have to? Yes, and we're still trying to make a decision. At the end of the day, we have been served well over Zoom and we've done it well, but do we miss meeting people in person? We certainly do. We want to get back to that as soon as possible. We want to do it safely.
Yeah, that makes sense. Allison, you saw kids this year, and so did you, Marjorie.
We did, and actually we saw kids last year, so we were, a little bit out there, but we have an outdoor space. So we saw boys on Saturdays, and especially last year, it was such a a joyful and normal part of the process in a year that was so other than normal. So we're very lucky to have that space. And so whether we see boys, during the week in our physical space or on Saturdays outside or in our gym, in groups of 4 with a capacity of 600 plus, we have a lot of safe ways to see boys. And so, I have no doubt that we'll continue that practice in a safe way going forward.
And Annie, you saw children on site as well this year, correct?
We did, yeah. We saw all kindergarten applicants in person. We're hopeful that next year we'll also be able to see our 2 big entry points are kindergarten and 6th grade. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to see our older students in person as well. But for our kindergarten applicants, we're thinking we're gonna do the same thing in this year. 2 kids per appointment. Esther and I will be in separate rooms with them, and then halfway through the appointment we switch. So we both get to see every single kid. We get to see that student, so we can speak to them during the admissions committee, and hopefully we'll be able to see the older kids in person as well too.
Beth, what are you planning for the fall?
Yes, I am planning to see our kids in person this fall. I really, really miss them. I have to say, I agree with Jason. We, definitely had a great Zoom assessment, and we met the children, throughout COVID in that way, and it went very, very well. But we want to get back to seeing them in person. In fact, next week we are welcoming our newly enrolled families the parents on our campus for, the annual welcome event. That's, we're bringing together the trustees and the head of school and, and other parts of the campuses to welcome our newly enrolled families, the lower school newly enrolled families, I should say. And in late May, as well as early June, we will be welcoming those newly enrolled children to visit our campus, along with their buddies that we selected from the classrooms to welcome them to campus. So so we look forward to seeing them in the fall.
And why don't I want to hear from Marjorie? I know you saw children this year. Do you want to talk about what you think you're doing in the fall?
Sure. So we saw our junior kindergarten applicants in groups of up to 6 with 3 teachers this fall. It went very well. We'll be continuing that. We also did our tours in person this year. We'll be continuing that. It went very well. We had, great turnout. One thing we'll keep though is we will keep those parent Zoom interviews on Zoom so that you can do it from your office or wherever is convenient.
Oh, okay. That's really good to know. And that's sort of a follow-up question I have, but let's finish this out. Diane, what are you thinking right now for the fall?
Sure. Our goal is to have everyone in person and, piggybacking a little bit on what Marjorie was saying, we will keep some of the components from the past 2 years that we've found were wonderful opportunities to provide equity and access to all of our families. So having an option of a parent interview, if it's easier for families, or if someone is international or maybe in a different time zone and they can Zoom in and do an interview and a student visit that way, we'll work with them to accommodate that. So we really found in these, I hate silver lining because I feel like it's overused, but there are a lot of things that we learned from this experience that we'll try to incorporate, but it is our goal to have all of our students come in for their visit in a safe way. We're planning to do a lot of weekend events to accommodate that. So that way we can really leverage, some early visits in the fall, right, hopefully. And in case anything should pivot, we'll have a backup plan if we need to.
Okay. And then Drew, what are you planning right now?
We at Trinity were virtual for the last 2 years, unfortunately. And that was really coming from our school and respecting that safety piece. And we got the go ahead and be back in person next year, which I'm thrilled to say. I'm speaking specifically about kindergarten. I think ninth grade is going to have a very different procedure here, but for our kindergarten kids, it's, I mean, again, as a former teacher, I feel like we have to meet them. That's key. And so we're going to prioritize that visit. We meet with families 2 at a time. We meet 2 children at a time, and then each family goes off with a different interviewer. So that happens simultaneously. The tour, we also feel strongly needs to happen in person. But, just like Chapin, we're ready to accommodate anyone. And so if it's a logistical issue, we're happy to do it. We will offer weekend appointments if needed, or evening appointments if needed. And we also like to go out into the preschools and observe students. So we do that in person. And in the event that we can't make it to a preschool, we have Saturday play groups that we do in person as well. So I guess the answer is everything hopefully will be in person. We have our new families coming on campus right now getting tours because they never got them. And so we're giving them those now, and they're all very happy, which feels good. And we'll bring the kids and their families to campus in June because we have a giant turf play space that we'll have the picnic for. So it's looking up.
That's excellent. I wanted to ask about essentially there's been a lot of sort of kerfuffle around the park bench the last 2 cycles over the T&E, and so I guess, and many of you never use the T&E, but I guess I would love to see a show of hands if anyone is planning to use it going forward.
Adriana, I could speak up. I was on the board for the T&E, and it was announced about 2 to 3 weeks ago that we're not using that anymore.
Totally not using. Okay,
totally not.
That's good. So everyone who's here tonight should hear this loudly and clearly. The T&E is done.
Done.
Okay.
And it served us well. And
Yeah.
I think it served families well in the time that we used it. But we just, I think all agreed collectively that, and feedback from member schools that we're in a better place. And as you heard from my colleagues, everyone is really excited about the possibility of meeting our youngest learners in person. And just like some of my colleagues, again, we had our welcome party a few weeks ago with all of the students and their families, and we just couldn't have been more excited to actually see them, and not just pictures or videos. So we're excited to say that, yes, we're not using it again.
Okay, so that I think.
I'm sorry, Jason. May I add that we used the T&E last year, and it did serve its purpose, because in the beginning of COVID, I mean, we didn't know what to do. But we decided, Berkeley Carroll, we decided to, create something that was Zoom appropriate and robust for our kindergarten applicants. And it served its purpose. We were able to see those candidates even over Zoom, which was really nice. But we decided that if Diane, if T&E were going to be offered, that we would have our kids in person.
Yep.
Thank you for that information.
Yeah, I think that's a very important takeaway for the families here tonight. And then Jason, I want to follow up by asking you, do you expect to continue using the FLI?
So yes, at the end of the day, the FLI served us pretty well.
Yeah.
The reason that we enjoyed working with First Look Insight, and I say we because Horace Mann partnered with Riverdale Country School,
right,
for a number of different reasons. One, to reduce the cost. So at the end of the day, we footed the bill, both Horace Mann and Riverdale, for 2/3 of the administration, a little bit more actually. And that way the cost of the parents was $50. And don't get me wrong, for some families, that's still a lot of money. But the cost was $50 for the administration. The other reason that we like the FLI is that parents got the results for the FLI. So parents saw the results, and that's something that we appreciated as well. At the end of the day, the FLI was still, even after all of that, even having an assessment done by an outside organization, it's still only one piece. We also worked very closely with the students, even though it was over Zoom. And because we were doing things with the FLI, we worked on other things with the kids. And so that was something that was important for us. So even if we are in person, we'll still be offering the FLI, which parents and students can do in the comfort of their own home.
Gotcha. And I'm going to dovetail off of that, because I want to ask all of you to just give us a quick descriptor. Tell us a little bit about the child who's a strong fit for your kindergarten cohort. Who's going to be a success? You know, what are the things, obviously not too in the weeds, but just at a high level, what do you think, when you're meeting hundreds of 4-year-olds? Jason, okay, Beverly, you go.
I'll go first. So I would say that, though our programs are rigorous, it is also very joyful. And we want parents to understand that, rigor and joy are not disconnected. And children should have that joy of learning, especially in the lower school and into, middle school, well into upper school, throughout, into college, et cetera. We want that joy and that thirst to continue in college and their careers. So with that being said, at Berkeley Carroll, I am looking for children who are seemingly focused. They have some skills. They are respectful and kind. Again, critical, ethical, and global thinking is very important at our school. So we think about the whole child. We would like to, for the children to have good language skills, expressive and receptive. Introverts, extroverts. Introverts are welcome. Extroverts are welcome as well. We can't have a classroom full of either one. The teachers will go, bonkers. But we are looking for, the socialization. That's one of the reasons why we want to see them in person. We're looking for readers and non-readers. We have our kindergartners who come in reading Harry Potter, chapter books, and then we have some who are just learning, they're just learning how to read, Dr. Seuss, and that's okay. That's okay, because we're going to meet children where they are and take them where they need to be, and that's even with the language skills as well, But we do have to understand them, and they do need to understand us as well. So those children who seem to want to engage, joyful, that is what we're looking for.
Okay, that's very helpful. Marjorie, why don't you tell us about who's a good fit for Grace at kindergarten?
I'm going to sound very wishy-washy, but we're not looking for cookie cutter kids. We're looking for curious, engaged children. They have endless possibilities. We don't know where they're going to go. We don't require applicants to read in kindergarten. Some do, some don't. But again, good developmental practice is what it is. And so we don't expect that. So I can't give you a clear thing because we're not looking for a cookie cutter. Yeah.
Yep. No, I get it. Annie, what about you? Who's a successful, entry at VCS?
Absolutely. I would agree. We're not looking for, one kind of child or one kind of family. We love a wide range of students with various interests and various abilities as well. We are a school that has an age cutoff of December 31st. So we actually have a wide range of ages coming into our kindergarten class. And it really allows for students who are reading or doing a little bit of math, excuse me, and students who are also still learning how to read. Students who are excited and jump into a classroom, students who might walk into the room and take a look around first. Both are wonderful, and we love to see all the above. But really kind, curious kids who are excited to, participate, be a little social. If they're shy, that's okay too. And we love to just see what they have to give to the class.
Allison, who's a good fit for St. David's?
So following on what my colleagues have said, I think at St. David's, many boys have the opportunity to be really successful at St. David's through the balance of our program, through finding a really, really strong sense of belonging, the finding an atmosphere where they're comfortable being themselves, and with teachers who understand boys. So, if I had an hour, I would love to get into, the philosophy of why all boys in the formative years. We don't have that time. But I will tell you that I didn't understand the logic going into the process with my 4 children. And what I learned is just incredible. And maybe the most concise way to put it is there's really nothing, I think, more important in education than in the formative years, really figuring out who you are and feeling really good about yourself. And meanwhile, developing a really strong academic foundation, critical thinking skills, public speaking skills, all of these things. But all the while, having the space to figure out who you are and to feel comfortable being who you are, and then therefore becoming your best self. And I know I'm just stating the obvious, but for boys in these formative years to have that space where they're understood, they're valued, and they feel that sense of belonging is really extraordinary in terms of how it helps them develop a strong sense of self. And so for families who are aligned, with our mission and the balanced approach, it's not just about grades. Academic foundation, of course, is important, but allowing the boys to develop across the 4 pillars and really feel good about who they are. And as we all know, when we feel good about who we are, we can do incredible things in terms of contributing to humanity and developing a real generosity of spirit. So I've already gone over time. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
That's really wonderful to hear. Okay, we have a couple. Drew, why don't you tell me, what are some attributes that might make a child stand out as, oh, this could be a good fit for us?
Definitely. I would say, just to sort of expand it a little bit, we don't just look at children. I think that's maybe obvious for everybody, but
Yes, good
the
point.
parent piece is huge for us. And that's why we spend 45 minutes getting to know families, in addition to children working with our child specialists simultaneously. So it always has to be a match. I mean, we could have the brightest child in the world, and we want to make sure that families are aligned with what we're doing and what we're putting out there. So that said, I would say kindness is a huge piece. Independence for students, flexibility, and grit, resilience. This isn't for kindergarten necessarily, and yet it's a K-12 school, and we know that eventually students are going to, everyone's challenged at some point, right? And we want that, but we also want them to have the skills to be able to cope with that and to push through. And so we look for that. The same thing with risk-taking, curiosity, sort of more obvious there, verbal abilities. And yet I have to tell you, my son probably was the shyest kindergartner I've ever seen. And I love this because, there are some schools who would say, well, that's just not for us, right? Like he's not speaking to everybody. He's not looking you in the eye. And yet, like, if I could go pull him out of his room right now, you would just be, he's in second grade. It's like, there's a chance for everybody here, I think. And that's the mark of a good teacher too. Our teachers don't expect a certain type of kid to walk through, and they know that it's their job to be flexible. It's not like their curriculum is going to be the same for every child every year. They have to sort of reassess their game plan. And I think that just sharpens their skills and makes the teachers really just amazing people. They're all different types of teachers because they're teaching all different types of kids. And that said, we're looking for teachable kids. That's something that, now being a parent, I'm like, oh, I'm explaining new concepts to my daughter or my son. It's like, yeah, do you get things quickly, or do you need a lot of like repetition and scaffolding? And that's fine too. But I would say we're a faster paced program, especially in 3rd and 4th grade. And so not a lot of reteach days, more like, okay, here's a new skill, a new concept, and let's build on that.
That's very well put. Okay. And I want to hear from Diane and then Jason afterwards. Same question, and then we'll move on.
Sure. I could probably pull pieces from all of my colleagues who just shared things. So what I will say that I think Drew hit upon is, the family piece is also important in this process. And what we think about is really, creating the diversity of thought and perspective and background so that students are developing cultural competency as they grow through our school. As with Trinity and several other schools, we're a K-12 school. So our students really do have the opportunity to interact with one another throughout the day, and we leverage that. We are also an extremely collaborative school. So when we do our play groups, and we're figuring out the number at the moment, but we historically would have groups of about 8 students in at one time for a session, so that we could do some one-on-one work with them, and we could also do some collaborative work with a student. So students who can partner with someone, we have a lot of opportunities for them to turn and talk. So after they're learning something in math workshop or reading workshop, can you explain your thinking? Can you give your friend a turn, to share their thoughts and their ideas? We also are, we really value the opportunity to meet the students where they are. So just as all of my colleagues have shared, we don't expect you to come in as a reader, but if you are a reader, that's great. We'll take you where you need to go. And if you are just still learning your letter sounds and those, recognition of letters and numbers, we can also work with you there. So a student that's willing to kind of lean in and take that challenge, wherever that challenge is for her, is a student that, would do well in our program. But we have a range of personality and birthday and background. And in our incoming kindergarten class, we have students from 39 different preschools and 4 boroughs, a couple of international. So, we have a large geographic diversity represented, 11 languages spoken in the kindergarten class. So we really do value that opportunity for our students to learn with and from one another.
That's great. All right. And Jason, what about you? You have the largest kindergarten.
So correct. We have and Horace Mann is the largest independent school in the tri-state area. That said, when you break down our kindergartens in the nursery division, it's about 16 kids in a class with 2 master teachers, and in the lower division, the 2 kindergartens here, is 18 to 19 kids in a class with 2 master teachers. What I would say is this: if we take it sort of nuts and bolts, very micro, one of the things that we might be looking for are kids that can make transitions. We do a lot. It's a robust academic schedule, from the work that we do with the Yale Center of Emotional Intelligence to our integrated robotics to chess to physical education 4 days a week to recess every day outside on the grasshopper to reading to writing to Francis and Pinnell to Singapore math, where I tell you with Singapore math, your kids will tell you that you're doing math the wrong way. So be prepared for that right away. Your kids will tell you, Mommy, Dad, you're not doing it the right way. We do a lot there. On a macro level, one of the things I love, because we live it, is our mission statement. We prepare a diverse set of learners to lead great and giving lives. At the end of the day, when you come out of Horace Mann, you know, you're going to have amazing opportunities. The hope is that over the course of 15 years, 13 years, 7 years, 4 years, we've taught you that you have a responsibility to leave the world better than you found it. And that's what we teach our kids. And whether that's through our work with social emotional intelligence, whether that's through our Center for Community Values and Action, which is a cornerstone of service learning in the city. Our hope is that the 46% of our students that are students of color coming from 154 different zip codes, entering kindergarten from 30 different schools, that they learn to be together, that they learn to work together. And yeah, like everyone said, looking for good kids, looking for kind parents. You know, I always joke around. I always say that the parents at Horace Mann are really wonderful people. And I say that because so many of them are my friends because my kids go.
Yeah. Can you add on, and I'm going to ask everyone to do this. I'd love to hear what it is you believe purposeful for prospective applicant families to know about Horace Mann's approach to DEIB.
Oh, sure. So we have been very, very fortunate. You know, obviously, we're all dealing with America's reckoning with race. So whether you're talking about police brutality, systemic racism, an assault on women's rights, fall of Afghanistan, war in Ukraine, anti-Asian violence, there's a lot going on. We talk about these issues in age-appropriate ways with our students. So whether it's our partnership with Pollyanna, diversity resource curriculum, nursery through 8th grade that we use, whether it's our anti-bias training, whether as you get older, you're talking about our seminar and identity courses, which are offered in 6th and 11th grade, or the fact that even in admissions, we engage in equity. We have something called Lions Talks, which are admission spaces set up specifically for Black and Latinx families. We do a lot of work in this area. Now, we didn't come to the party late, and we've been really engaged in this work pretty thoughtfully for the last 15 years. On the same token, if I said we were perfect at it, I'd be lying and you should run. Any school that says that they're perfect at their DEIB work, the diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging work, run away. The work is sometimes messy, it's hard, and it doesn't all get solved in one day. But we engage in the thoughtful conversations necessary with our ICIE office, with our parent institute, and obviously with the kids directly to make sure, once again, we're trying to leave the world a better place than we found it. And that way they're prepared to be 21st century learners.
Oh, that's really helpful. I'm going to ask everyone to comment on that, and we'll just sort of go in reverse order. So Diane, if you want to go but I'd love everyone to share a little bit about that, because it is obviously something that parents need to know, prospective families need to know. So why don't you tell us about Chapin's approach to DEIB?
Sure. You know, so just as Jason said, this is a commitment that that the Chapin School has made for many, many years. And it's something that we're continuing to work on and reflect on and grow as we learn more and grow more. And it's a community approach, right? So we listen to student voices, we listen to parent voices, we listen to professional community voices. Our school, again, a K-12 school, has affinity groups for students, for parents, for professional community members, where they can gather in a safe space and discuss and learn from one another. We have equity coordinators on each divisional level. So lower school equity coordinator, middle and upper school equity coordinators, and the director of equitable practices that works with the students, the parents, and the faculty to continue to deepen our understanding and learning and commitment to being an anti-racist school. Our equity coordinators will collaborate with our teachers so that DEIB work and that anti-bias lens is infused in all of the lessons from math to science to our interdisciplinary curriculum to ensure, and the tenets in our lower school is belonging, significance, and fun. So we want each of our students to have that deepened understanding that they belong, that they're significant, and most of all, they have fun. And in order to do that, they need to see a reflection of themselves in every aspect of their school life, so that they can really feel like they're seen and heard and belong. So that's some of it. We have social justice standards that are aligned with our curriculum K-12, and we began that work in 2014 through a collaboration with the Teaching Tolerance, which is no longer called that, for social justice standards, so that we ensure that our standards are aligned with every aspect of our curriculum. And recently we're doing a deep dive into our history and social studies curriculum K-12 to make sure that it's not just the Eurocentric history curriculum that we once heard and learned about.
That's very helpful. Drew, what about Trinity?
Yeah, and Diana, I just wanted to piggyback off what you just said. It's like, I think that's what I meant earlier when I said we're a 300-year-old school and a 5-year-old school at the same time. It's like, I think one of my greatest fears as an educator was always being in a place that felt stagnant. And you don't want to change for the sake of change. You want to change because it's, again, what's best for families and kids. And just things like our immigration simulation, some of the things that we were studying, indigenous people, where was that coming from? What were we teaching kids? What were we perpetuating? Again, we had all those conversations. It was uncomfortable. I mean, I think that's the nature of a lot of this work. I will say with Trinity, we were one of the first schools to have a full-time director of diversity, which is an amazing statement as it is. But then I'm on the hiring committee right now for the associate director of equity and inclusion. And, it's really made me realize Trinity cares about these resources. We have, faculty reps in each of the divisions who are diversity coordinators, but I mean, as anyone who's been a teacher can tell you, you can work your hardest and still you don't have time at the end of the day to make those changes. So to have someone who it's their job to focus on the lower school and middle school, along with our director of diversity is a godsend. And where did it come from? Our anti-racist task force recommendations, which are online. You can check them out. And there are about 48 of those. And I led the admissions group, and I'm really proud of it because we had about 7 or 8 different focus groups. And one of the things that came out of that was, we need a full-time position in the lower school focusing on these issues. But I will tell you, the anti-racist task force work came out of our Black students demanding change. They're the ones who wrote the letter to the school. I mean, if you can even imagine. Seniors, juniors, hey, something's got to change. There's a problem here. Here's what our issues are. Here's what we want changed. And I am really proud because everything they wrote about in that letter we addressed. Our head of school walks around with a clipboard, literally going to all of the different divisions, saying, what are we doing? Where are we at? And that feels like it was actually all worth something, meeting every single week for a whole year with parents, board members, teachers. It was great. I will say Chapel, again, that's just another vehicle for us. We get to talk about things as a whole lower school community that other schools maybe just don't have the built-in programming for. So that's when we just had our Chapel. We have our South Asian Chapel coming up, our Black History Month Chapel. It's just another place to have that dialogue. I would say our social studies curriculum is woven into all of these things too. Our service learning, again, someone had put something in the chat about autism, and I want to get to that question later if we have time. But we work with a school right behind us that for students with autism, and our students go out into that school and actually have partnerships with these kids. So diversity looks a lot of different ways. We have parent affinity groups. I actually lead the gay and lesbian parent affinity group and the faculty and staff LGBTQ affinity group, but we have about 16 for faculty and staff and parents, and it's just a great system. So
thanks, sure. What about Allison? Tell us about St. David's.
Yeah, so similar to my colleagues, I would just echo that diversity and inclusion is incredibly important at St. David's, and I think we continue to make great strides. We're not where we want to be. We continue to aspire to be a community that is more reflective of the sidewalks of the great city that we live in, understanding that that is, one of the most maybe impactful components of an education in New York City. So we continue to build our community to be more reflective. We honor and cherish the opportunity for our boys to learn from each other, from their different backgrounds, from their different traditions, to develop open-minded, open-hearted, kind boys. We've also, from the beginning of time, consisted on the golden rule. Now that may sound a little bit, like your grandmother talking, but from the beginning of time, it is treat everyone, and that means everyone as you want to be treated. We also model and cherish humility at St. David's in our community. We're working to build one community, a cohesive community where everyone feels that sense of belonging. We have certain challenges, our Catholic identity, brings certain challenges and misperceptions because we're really all about respecting everyone and welcoming everyone. So it's not perfect. It certainly can be messy, but I can tell you that our headmaster is passionate. Our trustees are fully supportive, and I think that we have really strong momentum that gives me great hope for our community in the future.
Thanks. Okay, I want to be mindful of time, but Annie, why don't you tell us about BCSs?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a wonderful question. I would say for all of our families here today to also look at all the diversity statements of all the schools that you're looking at. I know ours has been around for decades. Our role as a DI director has been around for decades. We actually have a new director coming in. We all got to meet him yesterday during a DEI meeting that we all had as a staff. But we have lots of different opportunities for our families to be involved. We have affinity groups. I know our parents from kindergarten through 8th grade were able to engage with one of our 8th grade teachers. And they all read together America for Americans and actually got to get a little taste of what our 8th grade students are going through in the DEI work. And also knowing that we're a social studies based curriculum school. So everything is age based. It's really appropriate for their age, but starting kindergarten, they're talking about what kind of texture the hair there is and being able to have that conversation with their classes next to them. And then fast forward all the way 9 years to 8th grade, and they're talking about internment camps that happen here in America and these different conversations that they can have. They're really involved in what's happening around the world. And it's really just a wonderful curriculum for them to be able to dive into and get a really good sense of being a good community member. And again, we love having our parents involved. We rely on them, affinity groups for our parents and for our students, and they're all student-based led. We love having them involved. So again, looking at those diversity statements, I think would be a great opportunity for you all to look at all.
That's a really good suggestion. Beverly, what would you say it's important for families to know about Berkeley Carroll?
Yes, so for Berkeley Carroll, I want to agree with Annie about parents. Please look at the diversity statements of the schools that you are looking at. That's very important. And I will also add to don't just look at the optics. When schools talk about, we have X amount of diversity here, X amount of diversity there, and then you go on the tour and you see those Black and brown faces and, in the classrooms. Don't just look at that and say, oh, the school is very diverse. No, there's so much more to it than that. It's about, making sure that the children who are Black and brown who are in those spaces, that they are being taken care of, that they can see the mirrors, right? Not just windows, but mirrors. They can see someone that looks like them in the classroom. And so with that, I'll say that at Berkeley Carroll, this work has been ongoing for more than 15 years. We hired a director of diversity, equity, inclusion about 8 years ago and expanded her office about 3 years ago. Faculty and staff, they always have, like, their meetings are fronted with professional development and workshops around DEI to further their understanding of equity and inclusion. Affinity groups were formed by the middle school and upper school students about 8 years ago, and faculty and administration created affinity groups for third and fourth graders in the lower school and about 2 years ago. So we have a robust, very engaged parent association. And so in many committees underneath that association, and one of the committees that's really, really popular is called the Mosaic Committee. And that's the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee that many parents, no matter who you are, where you come from, are a part of that committee, and it's really engaging. We also created a health and human sexuality curriculum for the lower school. So even our 3-year-olds, and it's very age appropriate. So, we give it to the children. We talk about every and anything because we know that children are talking about and hearing about these things from their parents and from parents' friends and from their older siblings and what have you. But we make sure that they're given this information in age appropriate ways. That's all I have. But yes, the work is difficult. We have been doing this work for a very long time, but we're not perfect. Every year, every semester, we're always tweaking and asking ourselves the question, what do we need to do to make sure that our families, everyone, is comfortable and that everyone understands, what this is all about.
Mm-hmm. Marjorie, can you share with us how Grace Church approaches DEIB?
Yeah, we're running out of time, so I'm not going to say many of the things that really, but what I really want to say is how brave the students were and the alumni that did the Black at the various schools, including Grace, and that was really so powerful and so brave of them. Like many of the other schools, we had other things in place. One thing that was interesting is we have a powerful committee on the board, which is the Institutional Culture Committee. That came out in February of 2020. And the idea is that's analogous to the Education Committee on the board. So those two committees represent, two powerful. So anything that is not academic in core nature goes in there, with health, wellness, all of everything. Anyway, it's really about the bravery of the students and the alumni. Please check out our website. We have a lot of things up there. I just don't want to take up too much time, but I would talk.
I know I should have asked that earlier because there's a lot to say. And I did recommend people put questions in the chat, and we have a couple of questions that I just want to get out really quickly, though it is 8 o'clock. The first is a question: do you recommend pre-K programs for early childhood 2- and 3-year-olds to get into your school? Those who have a pre-K entry, does that put kids at an advantage for applications to kindergarten? So that's a couple of questions in one, but I would say the first question is, do you recommend an early childhood program? And I would imagine most of us would raise our hands and say yes. Because they're great. But why don't we talk specifically the schools who do have a 3s or 4s entry? So it's Allison, it's Marjorie, it's Jason, it's Beverly. Is that an advantage if a child has applied to early childhood and then comes back?
I would just say that in going to a school that is an ongoing school, as they say, as it starts is as it goes. And so whether it's developing the social emotional components at a preschool, which they're designed to foster, or however it's developed, what is important is that a child comes into an environment, just sort of ready to separate, ready to share, ready to take turns, ready to be kind. It's really less about, the pre-academics than it is, being a good classmate. And that can be cultivated in different ways for sure. But I would say that, COVID has thrown a monkey wrench in everyone's world. But regardless of how you help your children develop those skills, those are important skills to a successful entry. And I think, if you're coming into a school that goes through 8th grade or through 12th grade, it's important to be aware that so much is, the first impression is really important. And if a child gets off on they're not a great, start, then that can follow them longer than it should. And so I guess my point is, however you work with your child to develop those skills, I would argue it's more important than the ABCs and, some of the other stuff.
Yeah. I want to just address this other question, which is, do you offer support for children in the autism spectrum and may need additional sensory support? Now, I do want to say these are all mainstream schools that we're talking to tonight, and nobody could probably answer that question without knowing the child's needs. But I will say that, Drew, I mean, you started talking about the relationship with MCC. Do you want to talk about just, schools have learning specialists? And
yeah, I mean, I like to say we go into this process with an open mind. I mean, to your point, what can we know about a child until we really meet them? I think that, going back to your first questions, like, that's why we're meeting the kids.
Right.
And obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, we really do depend and hope that families will share about their child and what all the wonderful things and all the things that they're working on too. I think that's another thing to say about the school, about Trinity. It's just, no one's perfect, and we're all working on things, and we're all trying to get better every day. So when families can come in and really share about their child, everything, that really helps us know, where children can succeed. And we're honest, I think, about it too. We're about what we have. We have a lot of great resources. We do have learning specialists, 3 in the lower school, of course, too. And yet at the same time, I think all families want their child to be in the place that's going to be able to support them best. And so who can argue with that? But if it means, should I apply or not, apply. And then I think that we can take that conversation from there.
That's excellent advice. Well, I want to thank everybody for their time tonight and adhere somewhat to the schedule. So I know we went a few minutes over, and we didn't get to do our speed round or myth busting, but we'll save that for next year. But thanks to our wonderful panelists, and a sincere thanks to you all for joining us tonight. And just remember, as you embark on this process, there are excellent resources in the community of New York City to help you. Not listening to the chatter at the playground, which is not a productive way to begin an admissions process. So whether it's your preschool director, working with somebody like us, talking directly to the schools, going on tours, do your homework, and it will be an easy process once you understand what you need. So thank you all. And
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adriana.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for
Thank you so
attending.
much.